Hello students, today we will be looking into the integrated logistics, a part of your unit 3 of fundamentals of logistics. Unit 3 integrated logistics deals with basically measuring the activities and the processes inside the company and see whether the performance of the company is up to date or as expected by the company management. So, we will now understand concepts, models and the application part of the integrated logistics. So, let us first understand what is the meaning of performance. All of you would be aware of what is performance. You have been studying very hard. You'll be giving your tests, your quizzes, your exams, and the results will be out. And finally, you look at the results and say, this is the way I perform. Now, so let's define performance measurement and the various aspects involved in this concept. Performance measurement is defined as a process. It is an ongoing process of doing what? It is basically quantifying the efficiency and effectiveness of a company's action. Now, the underlined word here is process and quantify, which is very important. What is the meaning of quantifying? There are several words that you get to hear with your teachers, with your friends, that you are a good student, you are a good son, or a good daughter, or a good boy, or a good employee in a company, or a good neighbor. Well, words like good, best, better are all comparative, and frankly, these are very, very subjective to individuals. A good for one person can be better or best for somebody else. So, in order to avoid the subjective usage of words, companies need to bring all their activities and processes into some numbers. This process of bringing something qualitative into quantitative, that is why we use the word quantifying, is measuring. So performance measurement is a process of quantifying. Now comes, what are you going to quantify? The two important words which till the end of your careers or maybe even after that you'll be using these two words, which is efficiency and effectiveness. We'll be defining both the words very shortly, but at this moment all of you would have heard this word several times, but we'll keep this definition intact with a very key word, that is process of quantifying. Now, throughout this session, I'll be using the word measure. So, what is the meaning of a performance measure? Well, when I use the word measure, many students may think that I'm asking you to take a tape, a measuring tape, and measure. It's a verb. Not really. Performance measure here, when we use the word, is defined as a metric. A metric that comes in varying forms. We will study all those forms. We'll say how these metrics comes, what are those ratios, what these ratios will signify to you, and how to interpret the results. The performance measure is defined as a metric used to again quantify the efficiency, effectiveness of a firm's action. Now, the process of performance measurement is so age-old that many academicians and practitioners have got together in various forums and come up with many models. And these days, since most of the companies are technology driven, these performance matrices are embedded in a IT system where feeding data based on certain criteria will automatically be giving you results, and a printout of those results should be taken up to the top management or at the divisional head for interpreting the results and taking future course of action. This entire gamut of system, we call it a performance measurement system. It is a set of metrics. It is not one metric. Several metrics across several domains and division that is used to quantify again the efficiency and effectiveness of the action of a firm. So the common words in all these three, performance measurement, performance measure, and performance measurement system, is efficiency and effectiveness. Now let us define what is performance measurement. There are various definitions. Performance measurement systems are a set of indicators. This is what was there in the previous slide. Well, performance measurement systems has been seen as frameworks also. That is why we have put up this material to you. Because performance measurement, students should not think that it is only a set of ratios. No. We have to go a step back and say why those ratios came. Those ratios came because the firms had a framework of integrating different measures in an environment which is very, very uncertain and very dynamic. It is not static. And the accessible way to achieve consistent and complete performance measurements. So, a performance measurement is the framework that integrates the measures in a dynamic and accessible ways. What do you mean by the word accessible here? We should be able to collect information in terms of numbers for any process or activity. If you cannot put a number to it, again, as I told you before, it will be subjective. Good, kind, better, best, wow. These have no meaning. So, it is done to achieve a consistent and complete performance measurement. Again, important words are consistent. Measuring one time and leaving at that is not at all acceptable. It is very prohibitive for the company's growth. It must be done repeatedly and consistently. You need to repeatedly measure the same activity at different points of time. And that is what completes a performance measurement. The definition further goes and says that performance measurement is nothing but a feedback on activities. Yes, definitely. After you take your exams and quiz, you get your report card. This report card is nothing but a feedback on how much you studied, how much you understood, and how much you could memorize. So it's a feedback in the same way for an organization's logistics division. It's a feedback on the logistics activity. Considering the customer expectation and strategic objectives also, and reflects improvement needs in areas with unsatisfactory performance and can enhance efficiency and quality. Well, the important part of this definition is it reflects improvement needs in areas. That means the firm can now say that instead of achieving a certain X number, we have received or we have basically calculated that our performance has resulted into X minus 1. You can know it is X minus 1 because you defined what is X. That is in numbers. And performance measurement aims for bringing those feedback to the company managers, which will help them determine whether it was a satisfactory or above satisfaction, that is delight, or unsatisfactory performance. Now let us look into the importance of performance measurement. Why is it important? Why you need to measure? Why performance measurement systems? Why a company needs to install expensive softwares, why they need to employ so many people, and many of those people are only providing or inputting data in the software. They can be in admin division. You can avoid all those things. Performance measurement has got a wide ramifications throughout the organizations. We have listed down 8 major points here which can be elaborated to our understanding. So let us go through it one by one. Performance measurement use measures to identify success. So once again, the word is success. How do you define success? Well, success is again subjective. If a student is good in sports but not in studies, will you call the student success or not successful? Very, very difficult to define, right? We have known our great cricketers who have not been good students, or they might not have got higher education. We have seen so many cricketers. Now, do you call those them success or unsuccessful? It becomes very difficult, am I right? Because each one uses a different measure of success. So, but in an organization, this cannot be allowed. It is not just the top management team, but the middle management level, the lower management level, even at the working workers, at the working class level, people who we normally call the blue collar workers, even they should be aware of what is the definition of a good job that they perform every day. And that definition comes only when you give them numbers to reach. So once each level of the management reaches those numbers, when we say the organizations have reached what they wanted to achieve, and that becomes success. Well, that is why performance measurement becomes very important. The next point is, if they are meeting customers' requirements. Well, performance measurement actually tells you whether you are meeting customers' requirements. Now, what are customers' requirements? Well, customer has to say that, but customer seldom tells you in numbers. Customer gets annoyed if the product is not packed properly. And customer sends an email to the company saying that the packaging was spoiled and torn and broken when it reached me. I will not accept this. I am very annoyed. Now tell me, how do you measure this? Very difficult, right? Customer says, I wanted a pink color. Well, you sent me a pink color, but that is a dark pink color. I am annoyed. I don't like your service. Please take back your product. How do you measure light pink, pink and dark pink? Well, can you ask customer to give a number? Yes, there are color numbers, color shade numbers. But do you think customer can tell this? No. So in order to avoid all these hassles, companies come up with a matrices that basically reflects whether they are catering to the needs of the customer. So that is what a performance measurement tells you to do. The next point, we'll go point number 2, is identify where problems, bottlenecks and waste exist and where improvements are necessary. Well, where does problem exist? In which chain of activities? Well, we have different chain. By now you would have understood what the supply chain is. In the first 2 units. Along with it, we also have something known as a value chain activity. A value chain is nothing but a set of activities performed by any organization. Basically, a value chain activity is divided into two parts. The first part we call it as primary activity. The second part we call it as support activity. The primary activity consists of receiving the material inside the factory. That is first activity. That is designated with inbound logistics. Producing the goods. That is second activity. And then the third activity is outbound logistics. That is transporting the finished goods to the customers. Additional activities are marketing and sales, that is required to reach the goods to the customer, bring awareness to the customer, telling him what is the price, telling him where the goods are available, where he can go and purchase. And the last part of the activity is after sales service. We list all these activities like inbound logistics, production, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and after sales service as primary activities. That is the first part of the value chain activity. Then comes your support activities. Support activities are a couple of them, which basically looks at supporting the primary activities. So, looking at all these activities, every organization in the world, to varying degrees, perform all these activities, whether they are in manufacturing or in services. But looking at the point number 2, when we use the statement identify where problems exist, first and foremost, you need to define an area where the problem is. You cannot say, my company is not doing well, my company is underperforming. The question is, where are they not performing? Which area? So, it can be in inbound logistics, it can be in production. So, identify where the problem is comes now very handy with the value chain. You say now, in production department, the performance is not good. Now, having known that the problem exists in production department, the performance measurement matrices basically convey to you what is happening in production department which is leading to poor output of the company. Is it because of wastage being very high? Is it because of machine that processes the product is not efficient? Again, efficiency is coming through numbers. So, in this way, there are several methods through which, once it is defined and continuously measured, we will understand where the bottlenecks are happening, why production is slow, why sales is getting very, very tardy, why we are not able to sell more. These questions normally surface in every company. Unless we know where the problems are and how the problems have been defined, we cannot rectify the problem. And the problems will percolate, increase in size, and finally company will be helpless and cannot be able to manage it. So, once we know, identify the problems in numbers, and company decides now that improvements are necessary. Now comes what improvements? That is the best decision a production manager or a marketing manager or a finance manager can sit together and decide. Let's go to the third point. It enables decision making based on facts and not supposition, emotion orientation. In furtherance to point number 2, where I said, a decision will be made to improve the quality of raw material. Now comes, how do you improve the quality of raw material? Maybe the raw material you received in the factory had moisture content more than what is prescribed by your quality control department. That means the moisture content is in numbers. So, we will now look for a raw material which is having a lower moisture content. This will enable the workers in the factory to process the goods efficiently and effectively. So, a decision can be made based on numbers. That is why we use the word facts. And words such as it may be, it could be, we may look into it, these are all suppositions or emotions or just sheer intuition. Some are very intuitive. With experience, your intuitions may increase. But how much you need to depend only on intuition all the time to improve the performance of your company? So, performance measurement enables decision making. It is the right tool and the right way to decide on anything. The fourth point, the company can figure out whether improvements that were planned actually took place. This is a very important part. We say we need to provide better service to the customer. Now, what do companies do normally? Companies will approach the customer and ask, are you happy with our company? Some customer may reply, some customer do not even reply. Well, the people who reply, they will say okay, and the company thinks that the answer is okay means they are happy. But are they really happy? And what about those people who didn't even reply? So, in order to figure out whether improvements that were planned actually took place, you require numbers. That means we can really go for a customer survey here. Elicit response from them one-to-one to proper research activities or measurement techniques. Or we can develop how many products were shipped on time. Look at this matrix. I will repeat it. How many products were shipped on time can be a measure of customer satisfaction. Because customer required the product tomorrow and you got the goods sent to him tomorrow. It was not today, it was not day after tomorrow. Both may be dissatisfaction. Because today the customer may not be available at his home, or day after tomorrow he may leave the city and go. But delivering the goods as required by the customer itself is a matrix that can lead to customer satisfaction. Now, in order to see to it that the goods that the customer ordered is reached on time, what are those activities required? This is what we call as the company can figure out whether improvements that were planned, having planned and executed, they have actually taken place. The fifth point, performance measurement makes communication very, very precise. Yes. So, your college would have told you, your professors, that you have to be on time. If you're late for so many days, you will not be allowed in the college. The point is they have given you number of days you can be late. Again, that's number. So, if they say you can be late to the class 50% of the time, is it a good measure? If they say you can be late to the class only 1% of the time, is it possible? You have to all go from far off places to your college. Weather conditions are not same. Public transport may or may not be available. You may fall sick. Is 1% the really right thing? No. So, performance measurement makes communication very precise. I don't say it is very acceptable, but it is very precise. Now you know that 1% is really so bad. It's not possible. 50% is so poor. You can achieve it easily. But students should be on time in the college only 50% of the time. So, it is precise but not perfect. Performance measurement makes that communication. Performance measurement, point number 6 also, it says it aids in operating in effective and efficient planning, control and evaluation. Once we plan, we need a control mechanism and evaluation system. We will be looking at each of these activities shortly. Let's go one step further. That is point number 7. It affects the motivation of individuals that are the company employees and encourages right organization behavior. The employee now can be told that is he performing well or not, what is the lacuna, where he needs to improve, which part of it he requires training, and when the company will say that the way the employee performs is not adequate or underperformance. Once the employee is very clear with it, he will act on it in a manner such that he will improve the performance of himself and of the company, and this we call as the right organization behavior. And finally, point number 8, improvement in judgments and decisions. Performance measurement, why I use the word improvement here again is more refined the measurement is, more continuous it is done. When there's a trend to be seen, judgments always improve. Please use the word judgments. Decisions are different, judgments are different. Even with numbers, companies need to make judgments. So much is the uncertainty in the business world. Now we will look into the topic that we are all dealing with, that is understanding logistics performance measurement. Up till now we said performance measurement. Now you attach the word logistics to it to narrow down this entire presentation to our topic, that is logistics management. Peter Drucker, the management guru, once said, if you can't measure, you can't manage. Don't forget this statement. For every activity in the organization, in your career, and maybe also in your personal life, you need to have certain numbers. Even we measure our health in terms of carbohydrates, that is again numbers. Glucose levels. When we have food intake, we look at calories, again numbers. So, if you can't measure, you can't manage. We can't manage a wholesome life if we don't know how to measure it. So, the second point is a very interesting point made here. The measures company chooses are indicative of their priorities and relationships. We always use the adage, you are what you measure. So, your priorities, in the same line, the organization priorities will change. Let's take an example of increasing market share. a company that wants to increase the market share, that is the performance priority, and keeps measuring what is its market share, that is the measure they have chosen, will work very differently than a company whose only priority is to make profits. If the company wants to make profit, there are different methods. They will focus on cost, or they'll look at increasing the price, or they will look at increasing customer satisfaction. Well, if you want to increase the market share, you may not want to increase the price, you will reduce the price. And profit may not be existing at all for your company till you achieve your market share. So, the measures that a company chooses are very indicative of their priorities. The company works with the same priority, and every department inside the company and all the employees inside the department work towards achieving those objectives. So, if the objective changes, the functioning of the company, the style of work, and of course the word written in front of you, that is priority, should change. Logistics primarily was nothing but a supporting activity. Let's go a couple of decades back. Logistics was considered nothing but putting warehouse, a dusty environment. When the goods come to the warehouse, it is manually taken out from the vehicle and pushed manually at some corner of the warehouse. The truck driver is paid some money for the service and sent off. There are no mechanization, no automation, and there were few insignificant workers who would barely talk to the office staff or the top management or the management teams. And management also would not discuss anything with the warehouse, because warehouse was a secondary activity. It was not that an important activity. Warehouse was a part of logistics. Transport was a part of logistics. But since it was a supporting activity, very less focus was given on measuring these activities that happens in this particular division. Maybe transportation, maybe warehousing, maybe storing, maybe picking the goods, etc. So, if at all a company was professional and big, they used to include certain financial matrices. Now we are coming with the word financial. It may be return on assets. What assets? Assets includes if we own the warehouse, the equipments inside. Of course, the equipments were negligible, but when the goods were very heavy, you require pneumatic machines to lift those goods. So, we used to calculate the return on assets. Logistics, recently or lately, have got a very important function to play. They are delivering customer service, differentiation, and competitiveness. And that's where, in the later part of your syllabus, we'll be looking at warehouse, transportation, reverse logistics, cold storage facilities, international logistics, and how much it has changed since many decades and how advanced technology has been used here. This is all done because companies started looking into numbers in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. And the definition of efficiency periodically was changed by the companies. In order to cater to those needs, newer machines were built, newer facilities were created, newer training was imparted to the employees, so that quick, swift, on time, top quality, at the right price, goods reach the customer. The focus on logistics cost and improvement has been an important measure to provide customer satisfaction. So, in this process, logistics managers today are looking at more non-financial measures. Well, financial measures like cost and return on assets are already there, but in order to provide customer satisfaction, these were very insufficient or inadequate. Now, companies are looking or laying a lot of importance on non-financial measures and the important function in delivering customer service, differentiation, and competitiveness. So, these three are the major focus of an organization of the whole. Non-financial measures have been developed into better measures in assessing companies' capabilities. In fact, non-financial measures communicate the health of the company, the performance of the company, its likelihood that it will grow in future, all these indicators much better than financial ones. We'll slowly talk about why this can happen. Firms that use a combination of both financial and non-financial performance have shown a better return on investment. That means financial and non-financial both need to go together. What activities, all the resource requirements that is done at the non-financial level or to reach the standards set by the companies which are non-financial will eventually collapse into financial metrics. So one need to always look into the financial metrics also. It is not mutually exclusive. One way to measure logistics success is using KPI. We will discuss about what a KPI is, that is key performance indicators. Now, look at the way logistics measures have been classified. Some say it is a hard measure, soft measure. Some say it is direct or indirect measure. Some say it is traditional or contemporary, etc. So we look into each of them. What is the meaning of hard measure and soft measure? Well, the hard measure are those measures that can be measured directly. Well, this can be a bit confusing. What do you mean by measuring directly? Return on assets is a financial measure and that can be measured directly because you have your statements, financial statements, statement of account, and that is sufficient for you to calculate return on assets for any given period. Well, order lead time can also be directly measured. In the same way, soft measures. Soft measures are those measures which cannot be directly measured. Means what happens? These are measures that include variables like customer satisfaction. Well, how can you measure customer satisfaction? If I ask the students, you went to a restaurant and had a pizza. Well, did you like the pizza? You will say yes. I will ask another student. He will say yes. I will ask the third, the fourth, the fifth student. All say yes. But all the students who I inquired did really like the pizza at the same level? Well, that is not known. Again comes the question, like is a very subjective word. You may say like because the steward was very kind and courteous in his behavior. Another person will say I liked because the surroundings or the area where they went or the friends with whom he went was very enjoyable. Another person who is a who likes to eat pizza, who tastes several pizzas, will actually rate the pizza quality and says, I like the pizza. You see, each one says, I like the pizza, but for varying reasons. That is why we say these are soft measures. It is very difficult to measure satisfaction because it's very subjective to customers to customer. Now, when we develop such variables, we need matrices to measure satisfaction. So there are various methods like surveys, questionnaire, where we can measure the satisfaction. Some group of people classify logistics measures into direct and indirect measures. A direct measure is quantitative and an indirect is qualitative. Quantitative will include order cycle times and fill rates, whereas indirect, which is qualitative, will include customer satisfaction or customer loyalty. There is another group of people who look at traditional logistic performance systems, and whatever is not traditional becomes new. That's it. So in this there were two bifurcations. There's an internal performance measure and an external performance measure. We'll be discussing this very shortly and in depth. What constitutes an internal performance measure and what basically means an external performance measure. Later, comprehensive supply chain performance management is an integrated performance that is measured between different businesses. Well, this is very important. When I say different businesses, we're not looking at competitors. We're looking at businesses between manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers who always form a part of a system. A manufacturer manufactures the goods, but as a customer you go and purchase it at a retail shop. Between the manufacturer and the customer, there are a lot of people who come in between. That integrated performance of all these people, right from the manufacturer to the retailer, is very crucial. This we call it as comprehensive supply chain performance measurement. Now, whatever measures we use, the two things that is commonly measured is efficiency and effectiveness. So for this purpose, let us look at the definition of each of them. What is the meaning of efficiency? What is the meaning of effectiveness? Well, there are different definitions. Each definition gives you a better insight and better clarity so that there is no anomalies, there is no ambiguities in understanding these two words, because these two words will be using very constantly throughout the unit that we are progressing with. Efficiency is how well the resources are utilized. Well, this is a very, very generic statement. It follows, it's a ratio between the expected to be consumed and actually consumed. Well, this is a bit more in depth, gives more sense. Normally, when we use the word efficiency, we say it is a ratio between resources expected to be consumed and actually consumed. So, if you actually consume less than what was expected, then we say it is efficient. Or you actually consume what you expected, then we say you are efficient. But you end up consuming more than what we expected, then we say there is some anomalies, there are some problems in the system. Efficiency is a ratio between resource usage and actual usage of resources. To transform an input to it. Now in the same line, what is effectiveness? Unlike efficiency, effectiveness is always an extent to which goals are accomplished. It's a ratio between the actual output and expected output. Well, it is an extent, that is, the actual result correspond to the output in quality and quantity. efficiency and effectiveness go hand in hand. There is only slight differences to it. You need to add the word the extent to which things are happening. Now we're looking into purposes of performance measurement. The overall objectives of performance measurement can be collapsed into three different categories. The first one is monitoring, second is controlling, and third is directing. Monitoring is an activity which is achieved through performance measurement. When a company tries to track its historical performance through historical measures, data is collected of past performance of different divisions, from marketing to production to quality control to packaging, warehouse, and this report is finally submitted to the management or at any manager level in the company for a final decision making. The information can be monitored on an hourly basis based on the criticality of the information, or it can be on a daily basis, weekly basis, or even monthly basis. Various logistics areas like transportation, warehousing, and other critical areas such as order completion, defective returns, damages during transportation, and cancellation of the orders all can be monitored through performance measurements. The next part of the objective is controlling. Unlike monitoring, control consists of tracking the ongoing performance. Well, monitoring is historical performance, that is the past performance, whereas controlling is an ongoing performance. Well, what is control in an ongoing performance? An ongoing performance that outputs into numbers, well, it can be a production process. Here we see if the actual activity deviates from a set of established standards. The standards that were established by the company through their budgeting process. Measuring the actual performance will always help to rectify deviation, primarily make the process of the company compliant with the set standards. The next part, or the final part of the objectives, is directing. The process of directing is aimed towards employees. It is to bring motivation in the employee who are all the part of the logistics activities. Once the employee get motivated, we can encourage them to increase their performance, improvise on their skills, and this will be benefiting the company as a whole. How do you motivate your employees? When you provide them certain information in numbers, by telling them that we can reach certain targets in marketing division. In the production division, we can direct the personnel by telling that if you decrease the wastage by 2%. So here in each cases, you're developing certain matrices, whether it is sales or wastage, both in numbers. And when the employee achieves those numbers, the company can reward him with suitable incentives. So this motivates the employee and strives him to work further for the improvement in the logistics department as a whole. Now, we'll be looking into what are the different standpoints or the attitudes or the opinions that companies hold towards performance measurement. Well, we call this as perspectives of performance measurement. There are two standpoints by the company. So these are known as process-based and activity-based perspectives. First, we will look into the process-based activity. A process-based activity looks the entire process as a whole for the company. That means, what can entire company deliver to the customer? Well, it considers the customer's satisfaction that is delivered by the entire supply chain. And finally, it leads to customer satisfaction. So process measures are those measures that aim towards achieving customer satisfaction, and it is very vast in nature. Few examples have been given here. I'll be giving you certain examples of all the different matrices. Some are very obvious, some may be new to the students and they may have some problems in understanding it. Wherever there is some problems in understanding it, there I have tried to provide meaning to each of these matrices. So, one of the process measure is cycle time. When the word cycle time is given, what does it mean? Cycle time is a measure that looks into the amount of time, number one, or the speed, both, with which a product is completed from the time the customer placed the order till the goods got delivered to him or her. Well, when I say customer, here we consider both B2B and B2C. The next part is customer quality service. A customer quality service focuses on customer delivery. Service, as we all know, is intangible, and customer satisfaction cannot be measured by the way a tangible product can be measured. Customer will always look at the product, packaging, color, hold it in his hand and use it if it is tangible, and then say he gets satisfied. So there is more weightage on the tangibleness of a product, whereas in service, where everything is intangible, it is very difficult to measure customer satisfaction. So customer delivery becomes a key here, which makes a service quality service. So, in order to develop a quality service, companies must undertake certain steps of establishing standards, measuring the actual performance against these standards, and whenever the company employee is able to achieve it, we have to recognize and reward him, because it inherently makes him or her motivated to perform much better and maintains enthusiasm for the customer at all times. And finally, these are those activities that leads to customer satisfaction. Now the next part of the perspective is activities. Unlike process, which looks at the entire gamut of supply chain and that leads to customer satisfaction, activity is a very individually task-based measure. It is individual task focused. Within the logistics department, definitely, as we are taking only about logistics. There are some examples given here that can be very insightful to understand what is an activity-based measure and what are the individual tasks in here within the logistics department. Delivery time, whether it can be per order or per customer or per product. These are three different matrices. These are activity-based measures. These are nothing but number of units a firm delivers on time as a percentage of total number of units shipped by them. This is a ratio. Well, the delivery time calculates the unit that the firm has delivered only on time compared to the total units shipped. Next is order picking. That is also an activity based measure. An activity based measure like order picking is so important that I even marked it with an asterisk. Order picking is one of the few activity that takes a lot of time in delivering the goods to the customer. In year 2000, a research paper published had an empirical study done which said that order picking takes more than 60% of the total time in logistics. Total time of delivering the goods to the customer. 60% of the total time is taken only for searching where the goods are in the warehouse. So important is this matrix. So order picking is nothing but the time required to retrieve a product from a storage location after they receive the customer order instructions in the warehouse. That is an individual activity. We call it an individual task, followed by order entry time per customer. All the actions required to record a customer's order into a company's order handling system is very essential. This is in addition, I have added some more like order selection time per customer, order selection time per product. These are some additional matrices. So we call this as an activity based measure. So now we have covered perspective of measurement in terms of process measures and activity measures. An activity measure is established through what we call as key performance indicators, also KPI. Now we will look into what a KPI is. We have all heard this word. You might have read it in magazines, newspapers. It's a very generic word. So before we go into what these actual matrices are, which will be beginning after the end of this slide, we have to see what KPIs are. KPIs are nothing but quantifiable measures of performance for key activities. So if it is not quantifiable, you can't put it in numbers. It is no use calling it as a KPI. If I ask you to be the best student, it is not a KPI. If I ask you to score 95%, then that's a KPI. KPI must be clearly defined. Well, an organization is so big, there are various levels, and each level has got horizontally expansion. There are many different subdivisions in it. Various company employees play with different roles in it. So once the KPI is established, the meaning of the KPI is very important rather than just the formula. Because even formula can mean differently to different set of people. Because they all come from different domains. One is from an engineering division, another is from an accounts division. An engineering division is more technical and accounts person is more analytical. A marketing person looks at more from customer centric point of view. These three people need to understand one single metrics. They will all look at different paradigms. That's why KPI must be defined properly. The meaning of the KPI and why the KPI is there. It has to be understood by all the personnel involved. Next, KPI are very important metrics that the organization has chosen to measure. I think we are repeating the statement. Previously I said, we are what we measure. An organization is what it measures. That's all. So KPI are those measures. So KPI can come in any form. It can come in a flat number. It can be a percentage or it can be a rate. All three are indicators of performances. A flat number is nothing but a numerical number. If I say how many products did you sell today, that is known as a flat number. That means we can compare that number with the standards that is established per day, how much a salesman has to sell in a particular region or particular city or particular area in the city. That will be a flat number. Next is a percent, a measurement of an activity as a percentage as a whole. Okay, is a wastage. They say 5% wastage is allowed. Breakage, 1% breakage is allowed when the truck travels in certain areas which doesn't have proper roads. Well, that is, we call it as percentage. Rate is nothing but measurement of an activity referenced against other measures or other numbers. So, KPI are set as an ongoing value. They are continuously measured and or they have minimum and maximum desirable value. That means KPI needs to be continuously measured so that deviations are quickly known and correction wherever required is completely taken care of. Or KPI, some KPIs may not be possible to measure continuously. It can be only measured towards the end of certain period, and those KPIs are set with a minimum and maximum desirable values. That means after calculating the actual performance, if the numbers are not between the minimum and maximum threshold limits, then it's a cause of serious concern. So this is the role of KPI, that is key performance indicators. So herewith we end the part 1, and in the next session we'll start different matrices in logistics measurement.